favorite comic book writer and friend, J.M. DeMatteis, is going to be on the show today. Legitimate goosebumps.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet.
You know, when I can do, hey now. Hey now.
That's great.
Still about the coolest thing I'm ever going to own. And it's still my favorite comic book ever written. So I don't know where our other cohorts are.
I was going to ask, is it just the three of us today?
No, there will be two more joining. Gray's dropping in the background because he's having some computer issues. So he'll type in some chat questions. Our mate Mark is broke down on the M5 highway because his clutch went out. And he's being towed right now. And he was going to talk to you about the Kickstarter. And our other infamously tardy panelist, Nevs Coleman, has a laundry list of questions for you that he's already trying to approve through me. And Bill Field, who just got back from San Diego Comic-Con, has, he's interviewed you before for Comic Book Historians. And he's looking to get in here soon. But I'm going to shut my mouth as much as possible because I'm just going to blather on about how incredible your writing is and yada, yada, yada. And I'd like to say I introduced your work to Eli. I did not. I did not get the chance to. He found it on his own. We started talking and I started rattling off stories you've written. Kraven's Last Hunt came up. He's like one of my favorite stories ever.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm going to turn it over to him for a minute. Eli, the platform is yours. Ask him questions you might have about the writing history or whatever went on with that. And don't be so shy, kiddo.
Okay. Well, hang on. I think I'm lagging a little bit.
It's all right. We can work with it.
Yeah, as long as we can hear you okay. It doesn't matter if the picture's a little jumpy.
Okay. Well, I'm not really sure what to ask. First, yeah, I really enjoy Kraven's Last Hunt story. It's pretty good. I would say it's probably at least in my top 3 Spider-Man stories. And I just think it's interesting how the idea of the hero rising from the grave, a storyline that you were trying to do, is something that you held on for so long after going through multiple different drafts and different characters trying to do it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's important, I think, for all creative people, not just writers, to know, is that just because something doesn't click right away, you don't throw it away. I have so many projects that took years, sometimes decades, to kind of find their form and get out into the world. And you come up with an idea and you pitch it and it gets rejected and you go away, you tweak it, you play with it, you put it in a drawer for a few years, you take it out again, you pitch it, it gets rejected again, you do the same thing. And then when all the elements are right, when it's the right time for you psychologically and emotionally, when you have the right artist, when all those elements come together, it will click. And I always say the story has its own intelligence and timing, which is better than my intelligence and timing. So I have to trust the story that it will emerge into the world at the right time.
Yeah, and that story, he's going to relink back up. I'd imagine he might log out and log back in.
Right.
But I mean, that story was, what is that, 1984, 1985, or 86?
Kraven came out in 87.
87, okay.
Yeah.
So that's like 13 or 14 years before he was even born.
Well, that's the amazing thing about some of these stories, that has nothing to do with me. I always say I sail them out into the world, and then it's between the audience and the story. It has nothing to do with me. And some of these stories, for whatever reason, they just live on. And when people reach out to me on social media or at conventions and they say, hey, I just read this last week for the first time. And that's what you hope for. A story that's continually in print, that new readers are rediscovering all the time. You can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, and I mean, it affected me when it came out. Of course, I was maybe, 2 years older than he is now when it came out, and it affected me then. And now he's 2 generations past that, and he discovers it,
Right.
and it affects him now, that's a lasting impression. That is very impressive.
You can't ask for anything more. You really can't.
And the fact that, like I said, I didn't even push him towards it, because like all my Spider-Man comics, I either give to him or my grandson, just over and over and over again. And just to know that there was that impact now, I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to start railing on my stories. I'm not going to tell my stories. Eli, the floor is yours again. Do you got anything else you want to ask him right quick? Or?
Oh man, I don't know. I have to sit and think about what I need to, or what I want to. You can pass it over to Bill or anybody else.
Bill Field, JM DeMatteis again. JM.
Hey, Bill.
JM, we've met before. You probably don't remember me because I'm but I am so memorable. But we met at TexasCon a number of years ago and hung out for a few hours, and I asked you everything I ever wanted to. So I have no questions. Sorry. Goodbye. No, but I really, I'm a huge fan. I did a panel this weekend at Comic-Con. I'm a comic historian now. I wrote a book on Neil Adams. And I'm working on a book right now about 60s television cartoons. But I talked to you years ago, and now, so at my panel this weekend, we talked. We've uncovered all these interviews with famous comic artists from the Golden Age and Silver Age, some of which no one have ever seen before. One was John Broome, and John Broome is credited, and I was curious what you'd think about this, but he's credited with bringing screwball comedy to comics back in the Green Lantern issues, Golden Age Green Lantern.
Oh, Golden Age. Okay.
Right. And then, of course, he went on to create most of the major characters in The Flash, like Kid Flash, Captain Boomerang, Heatwave, all of those great foes and stuff. And my question to you is, you seem to be the modern master of screwball comedy in comics. And I'm curious what you think about, I mean, I know people really don't want labels, but you could, it's almost like you could orchestrate the perfect like mayhem, especially in like the Legion, and I mean, not Legion, I apologize, Justice League. And then later, you even brought humor to Justice League 3000. And a lot of the other things you've done, you employ this pattern in a way that's beautiful and that always has a payoff. And I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, you know, I can't take all the credit because that's a fusion of me and Keith Giffen working
absolutely.
together. You know, and Keith is as brilliant a creative mind as I've ever encountered in all my years in the business. And us working together, we both always say it's like we become something bigger than what, or if not bigger, certainly different than what we are individually.
Like a symbiote or something.
Yeah, exactly. I can't get Keith off me. Oh my God.
Get him out of here. Composite Giffen and DeMatteis.
That's right. You know, but it's true though. You know, we bounce off each other. We didn't even realize it when it was originally happening in the 80s. It just sort of happened. I always say that you can't make this kind of creative chemistry happen. It either happens or it doesn't. I've worked on projects where I've written a great script. You had a great artist. You put us together, and it just dies on the page. You know,
right?
Keith and I, there was some magic spark, and especially with Kevin at the beginning as well, that just this happened. This magical thing happened, which we didn't even understand it till like 10 years later, after we were done with Justice League, when we got back together for formerly known as the Justice League, and we went, "Oh, this is really cool what we do. We should keep doing this," you know. But so I think Keith gave me permission through his plots, because Keith always brings humor to what he does, to kind of uncork that side of my brain that is very much a part of me, but maybe wasn't necessarily always there in my stories.
Right.
He gave me permission to be an idiot.
I love that. As a filmmaker and documentarian, I love it when people give you the option to be an idiot if you want to be.
Yes,
because
exactly.
my biggest problem with comic book people, and I'm also an animation historian, also animation people, they don't have a sense of humor about shit that, quite frankly, is funny.
Yes.
And it's like being serious about something that's like screwball or whatever. It seems so disingenuous to me. And I understand people want to pick things apart and want to act scholarly, but there's a difference between acting scholarly and getting the joke in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I always say it all depends on where you put the camera, because I've certainly written my share of dark, serious, breastfeeding comic book stories,
Right.
and that's the camera is in a certain place, and then you just tilt the camera a little bit, and you look at the same thing from a different angle, and it becomes comedy. But I think, to kind of get to the root of your question, I think what made those stories work was that we were never. And I think what makes a lot of great comedy work is you're not making fun of the characters. We never made fun of those characters.
No.
We had fun with the characters. And I also think that a sense of humor brings a reality to those characters that's sometimes not there in the more melodramatic version. Because all of us, we know in our lives, sometimes the darker it gets, the funnier we get as a survival instinct, sitting at a funeral making a joke to somebody, because it's the only way you can deal with it. So I think the humor actually makes these characters in a lot of ways more human.
Absolutely.
They're not caricatures. I always related to those characters as three-dimensional real people. And I always say this, I go back to being in my late teens, early 20s with my friends growing up in Brooklyn, sitting around on a Saturday night, bantering and carrying on. And that's kind of that sensibility that I brought to my part of the Justice League.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my hat's off to you, because it's so amazing what you have done and what you have created. I'm curious what you think about the casting of Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner.
I love Nathan Fillion.
I do
think
too.
He's fantastic, and I'm all for it. We live in an age where everything has to be prejudged, and I think it's ridiculous after a certain point. I mean, first of all, didn't we learn our lesson back in 1989 with Michael Keaton and Batman?
Yes.
Right, and he turned out to be this fantastic Batman, and everyone was like tearing their hair out. And
the only reason the Flash made any money at all was because he was in it this time. I believe, which is sad.
So, so first of all, I love Nathan Fillion, and somebody saying, "Oh, he's too old for the part." According to who? According to who? It depends how he's used in the movie. It could be a Guy Gardner that's been around for 20 years. We don't know, and he's such a good actor that I
never felt like he was a young character anyway. Did you?
Right. No, well, certainly by the time he's in our Justice League, he's older, and he's been through it.
Right. So I don't see the problem there. That really boggles my mind.
Yeah. Someone was asking me the other day about, well, what do you think of the trailer for the Kraven movie? And my answer is, it's a trailer. I've seen wonderful trailers for terrible movies, terrible trailers for wonderful movies, and I can't judge something until I see the movie.
Well, verbatim, the trailer is actually verbatim I guess an appropriation, for lack of a better word that sounds not bad, but that from the Catman origin in Batman comic recently.
Oh,
maybe 5 years ago. Yeah, almost everything, all of the camera work, everything is so much like what you see in the comic, and it seems like there's no way it couldn't be, lifted from that, which is sad. But I guess nothing's original anymore.
Yeah. Also, especially with superheroes and all this stuff, there are so many tropes, that overlap and intertwine. And how many characters at Marvel and DC are essentially the same character with a slightly different name? And it's not the outer husk of the character; it's what you do with what's inside that really makes that character unique and powerful.
No, exactly. This is great, man. I've always wanted to ask you these questions and leave it to Kyle to set things up. But
speaking of Neil Adams, there's some work he did with Neil Adams.
That's Dick Giordano did the cover of that book.
Oh, Giordano.
Yeah, That's not
Giordano really had the flair that Adams did.
Yes, but that's the first Batman story I ever did was a coloring book. When I first started at DC, and Paul Levitz called me up one day and said, "You want to do this coloring book?" And when you're first starting out, no matter what the question is, the answer is always yes. because you want to just keep that going
Right.
and keep your foot in the door. And I
Right,
remember,
that's fantastic.
I think I was up all night. I wrote that in the night, that coloring book, and I stayed up all night and wrote a coloring book. And it's my first
great.
Batman story, so I'm still proud of it, you know?
There you go. Yet
That's
another
great.
one of those I need to get autographed by you, but I don't want
But
to be greedy.
probably one of the best written coloring books in history. By the way.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. But well, I want to ask you about probably the most popular scene you've ever written. And you can correct me if I'm wrong,
He'll
but
correct you.
the Batman punch
The
with
one
Guy
punch.
Gardner.
Yeah, I hit him with that last time.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Well, I
Yeah.
want to
It's
hear
okay.
it.
You can
I
ask me
wasn't
again.
here last time.
Yeah.
I will take a small amount of credit for that, but it was Keith who choreographed that. I give so much credit to Kevin for his visual interpretation of that. So then all I had to do was spin the plates a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
To get
And-
just the right words and the right reactions in there. But I mean, the premise for that scene came straight from Keith.
So what I want to ask now is, he acted so differently for years after that. Was there brain damage from that hit? What exactly happened there?
No, you know, he didn't act different. He was already the surly, nasty Guy Gardner.
No.
when we started.
I thought after the punch he was a real nice guy.
Oh no, that was a while later. That was a while later.
Gosh,
a while
it's been
later,
so
something
long. I'm
happened. It was
sorry.
like a typical crazy thing where he bonked his head and became like super sweet and super nice. I think we did that for about 6 months. Yeah.
I love that. I love that era of him. It was just so different, and everybody's walking around waiting for when he's going to change back. Basically.
Right. And you know, here's the thing though, which is interesting with these quote comedy characters. And I never thought about it till right now. The truth of the matter is that aspect of Guy that came out is also the truth of who he is. He keeps that covered up under like 20 layers of
Like he really is a sweet guy.
And that came out in his relationship with Ice in the book.
Yeah,
right?
it did.
That was the sweet Guy Gardner. He keeps that masked. He keeps that repressed. He bonked his head. It came out for a while, but it wasn't that it was just some funny thing that happened to him. It really was an aspect of his personality that he was always afraid to let out. That's a very deep interpretation of something I did 35 years ago, but I never thought of it till now. But it's interesting.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What are you doing, Kyle?
Reading the comments. I got to keep tapping on my screen for the comments and things.
Okay.
Graham's talking to my mother. My mother, Eli's Mima, is in the chat. A fellow writer like JM. And
this is a family podcast.
Yeah. She's wondering where Gray is, but Gray's having internet trouble, and we're all wondering where Nebs is.
We always wonder where Nebs is.
Nebs was totally prepared for this.
I know.
He sent precursor questions this morning. He said, I'm going to ask questions about this, and this, and I don't want to step on
He may also be having internet issues.
Yeah.
JM, where do you live now?
I live in upstate New York.
Around Beacon or?
About 100 miles north of New York City.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I have two very close friends that live in Beacon. They're both somewhat well-known artists, and one being Ron English. And I've always wanted to go up there. I've only been through New York once, and it was very quick. And I've always been dying to go back. So,
you know, it's funny when I moved up here years ago, because I grew up in New York City. When I moved up here years ago, I did not know that there were so many comic book creators in the area. You know, and suddenly there's Dan Green and Bernie Wrightson and Jon J. Muth and Jim Starlin and Barry Smith and all these guys, you know, that lived in the area.
The studio was up there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. At least at some point. Yeah.
Right.
Jeff Jones was around here. Yeah.
That's crazy, guys. That is so amazing.
What I wouldn't give to go back and be a fly on the wall one night in that studio.
Oh, I know.
One night. Just one night to walk in and go, hi, you're amazing. Thanks, guys. Bye.
And Catherine Jeffrey Jones was a friend of mine in their later days. And I have to tell you, they were so sweet to me and helped me so much with my personal style and would critique my work and tell me, do this, do that. And then overnight they were gone. And it really was hard on me because they were really a super nice person. And I just reached out because there was a French version of the Robert E. Howard character he did. I can't think of the name. The Pilgrim that was
Solomon Kane.
Solomon Kane. Thank you. I'm 60 now, so I'm having these brain farts on a daily basis. But Solomon Kane, and what they did was the poster art was a picture, but it was completely ripped off from the cover of one of his things he did with the character, and or she. And so I sent them a picture of it. They posted it 3 or 4 different times and within a day and said, this is what people do to people like us, you know, people in the industry. They just steal and they don't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And it was easily, even though it was a photograph, it was a perfect recreation of his drawing. And I remember that really bonded us as friends, and that's when we started talking about things. And I just have to say that was one of the greatest mentorships of my life as a comic artist.
That's really sweet. That's really sweet.
It was beautiful. But so are you still on the con circuit like you used to be? Because I know you used to do quite a few cons.
COVID stopped that, and I am sort of on the edge of going back, you know?
Right.
It's like every time I think about going back and I think about walking into a hall filled with thousands of people, and I hesitate a little bit, but I'm hoping that by next year I'll be back to it, because I really enjoyed the conventions. You know, and plus, you know, for me and my wife, or sometimes I'll go with my wife, sometimes my son, sometimes my daughter. It's a great way just to take a trip.
Right.
And in recent years, there have been all these international conventions. So my wife and I have traveled all over the world and had these wonderful trips to Italy and Greece and Mexico and here and there, you know. So it's a really nice thing. And plus, it's always nice to meet the fans. You know, it's always great to meet the fans. And it's especially interesting when you go to another country, because, you know, we're sitting in our little offices alone, and suddenly you go to Mexico and it's like, wait, these people have been reading my work their whole lives and they love it and they appreciate it. I mean, what more could you ask? It's just
I know, right?
Thing. It's a really wonderful thing.
The adulation of your public. I mean,
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Speaking for Mark, since he's kind of broke down on the side of the road, still waiting for a tow truck.
What?
And the thing here, Mark's out in England. He's like 150 miles from home, and his clutch gave out.
We love you, pal.
Towed. He said he's watching on here. He was going to talk to you more about the Kickstarter and things like that. And I'm going to speak a little bit in advance, and I'm probably speaking out of turn here, just by saying, I don't know if you have distribution for those Kickstarter books in England, but Mark runs Suddenly Comics, and I think I need to plug you two in, and I think we need to get some of those Kickstarter books over there through Suddenly Comics. Get you to ship some books over to the Stackery account estate over and get you lit up in England again.
Well, I can certainly get in touch with me, and I'll plug him into David Baldy, who runs Spellbound Comics, and they can chat. We'll
get you plugged in there, because he wants to get you at Thought Bubble. Hey, Bill, he wants to get you at Thought Bubble next year in England.
That would be fun. I haven't been to a convention in England since the 80s.
Yeah,
so it's been quite a while.
He can make that happen, Mark.
So I need to ask,
that happen.
Is David Baldy? Is he bald?
He like me is somewhat follically challenged.
All right, there you go.
Hey man,
it's
happening to me too.
It's hard for me not to want to do that. It's because Mark's well connected in England, and he can get you plugged into Thought Bubble, and hopefully we can get you over to there for next year's thing for them, because they can't wait to see it. I know he'd love to have your books at London Comic Mart to sell, and he really wanted to show, because he bought into the biggest thing into Kickstarter, and he's got the Mandrake drawing and all that stuff.
Oh, really? Great.
He was overflowing with questions for you, and then he's stuck on the highway now.
Do you have any of his questions? Did he send any to you in advance?
No, I figure if he's got a chance to type them in here, that'd be great.
Okay.
But he's
That's
so
good.
tied up with that. But again, I mean, it was full of platitudes. It was like, oh my God, that was so good. The book was so good. And then you put the piece of art with it, because you guys were speaking his language with the Western book. And, the big curiosity with the Kickstarters is, who won the thing for the second issue, which comes first, where's
Right.
where's the
Well, I'll
next
tell you
step
what
coming
happened
forward?
was, once we tallied all the votes up, the most votes were for please continue all 4 of them.
Well, yeah.
So as we speak right now, I've been working on chapter 2 of all these books right now. I'm in the middle of issue number 2 of Wisdom, which is the supernatural Western. It's what a great thing that I was able to get not 4, actually 5 new ideas out into the world, a fantastic thing. And to work with these amazing artists and to have it be successful enough that we can go ahead and continue it. It's one of the most exciting, joyful projects of my entire career.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I was talking to Graham before we went on air, and he was wondering, he had backed, and Mark had backed the biggest line, and he goes, "Did you get a chance to back?" And I said, "Sadly, no. Any disposable income we get here gets shoveled right back out into stacked up cancer bills for me. But I can at least plug in a bunch of people and go, hey, get in on this Kickstarter, get in on this there." And, I can kind of help kick the hype train over in England, because you have a huge fan base over there. A huge fan base.
That's nice. Yeah. Like I said, that's the thing I've really enjoyed about these conventions, is to go around the world and see these people who have been touched by my work is a really, really amazing thing.
Yeah, and I dare any of them to top my story, because, man, that's my favorite writer right there. Doggone it. I don't hesitate to tell my stories, but I'm going to thank you again. I don't care if it gets old or anything, dude. In all seriousness, you have profoundly affected my life for 40 years in subtle ways. I'm not going to give you more credit than my mom for raising me or my biggest influences, but an actual influence that affected my life. Your writings did that, and I will never stop appreciating that.
Well, and I thank you in turn. As a reader, I'm the kind of reader that when I find a writer that I resonate with, I really take it into my heart. And what you hope for yourself as a writer is that you can then, in a way, pass that on, do that in turn, that someone will read one of your stories and it will impact them and affect you the way your favorite stories have impacted and affected yourself, So I don't take it for granted when you say something like that. It means something.
It's amazing. I mean, I never stop saying to everybody, if there's a handful of comic books to read, first and foremost, Defenders 92, just read it. There's no way to describe it.
And what I find so amazing is that's like, one of the very first things I ever did at Marvel. It was my first issue of Defenders. I was still very new to the business, so that story has lived on for you in any way is just amazing to me.
Well, and it's incredible because you got these, just the behemoths, the strongest of the strong, and they're just swept aside. And the heart of the weakest one wins the day in a realistic way, where that affected me as a 13-year-old, and it still affects me as a 57-year-old. I may be down at the bottom, but I may have to be the one that has to step up the biggest to save my little world around me. Still put it into play every day of my life.
That's great.
And I learned that from you. I mean, my mom always said, you can do what you can do, but I saw that and I put that into today. I put that into play in my life today with my granddaughter. What can I do to make your world a brighter place? Because Papa's here to wrap his arms around you and protect you from all the bad. And you have a part in that. So that's why I said
that's
one
amazing.
of my greatest honors
and I
was
thank
to
you.
say, here's my grandnephew and here's my friend J.M. DeMatteis, who is an utterly brilliant writer. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I rambled again.
You don't have to be sorry. Don't ever be sorry for saying something like that.
Get that man a hanky.
Yeah.
But no, and a lot of your stuff affected me in such a way. I love anything you did with Giffen. I love all your work, but anything you did with Keith was always golden. And when was the last time you guys worked together?
I think the last thing we worked on together was we did 3 years of Scooby Apocalypse for DC, which
That's right. That's
which
right. And that
was
brilliant.
one of those gigs that came along, and Keith called me up one day and said, "This is what they want us to do," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then, as always, when I work with Keith, once we start working, it's just a blast. We just have the best time.
That's so great.
And I loved working on that book. I had a great time working on that book.
That is so great.
Yeah.
And they also tried to do that with Wacky Races, but I didn't.
Well, they did a bunch of Hanna-Barbera stuff, and
I didn't think it was as they tried to make that Mad Max like. Yeah, but I didn't think it was nearly as effective as what you guys did in Scooby Apocalypse.
Well, thank you. I really honestly didn't see the other books, so I can't comment.
Oh no, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I swear.
No,
as far as you know, no, I'm kidding. But
yeah, I think they should. Warner should do a nice Scooby Apocalypse animated movie. I think it would be great. Just adapt that story.
They've done so many others. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet.
Yes, and
I'm sure it's right around the corner because they're doing so many other crazy. Not crazy, but
wacky.
Well, they in Scoob, which was going to get a sequel, and then they cut that when they cut Batgirl and all those other projects. They had Kim Jong as Dynamite, and I'm like, why didn't they get a goofy voice? Why didn't they get Frank Weller to come in and do that? I mean, it was a strange. It was like, well, Blue Falcon. And it's like, that's not my Dynamite. It really upset me. But that's all I'll say about that. Sorry, that's the fanboy in me raging.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. We all have our little things that we rage about.
Yes, we do. I want to interject real quick because it's kind of funny. There was I was at Comic-Con this weekend or last week, and there was a wonderful Ditko panel. It's the first Ditko panel that had. Did you ever work with Ditko?
I have a couple of Ditko stories I'll share with you later, but finish your story.
Okay. So what happened was that it's the first panel that his family were a part of.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So Mark Zen Ditko, his nephew, was there, and then Marcy Single, who was his more or less his niece, but she was really his first cousin once removed. You know how that goes. It's more like a niece-uncle relationship because of the age difference. They were talking, and then in the middle of the panel, there was a nice orderly row like usual for Q&A. In the middle of the panel, this guy just stands up in his seat and just says, "I'm sorry, I need to interject, but Steve Ditko is my friend." And we were all looking around. The guy looked a lot, he said he was 51, but he looked a lot younger than that. But he was talking about when Ditko came to Comic-Con, which Ditko never went to San Diego Comic-Con. And he starts talking about how he was sitting there. He goes, my uncle, winds up his uncle owned graffiti. And he had these dead dog parties that are infamous on Saturday night before the end of the con. And so apparently he was at one of those parties, and he thought who he was sitting there drinking with was Steve Ditko. It was not. And we still couldn't figure out who it was. But he said, so I sat down and I had a beer in my hand. I sat down with a whiskey in my hand and bourbon whiskey in my hand. And Steve looked at me, and he had a Pabst Blue Ribbon in his hand. And he looked at me and goes, "Hey, son, what's that you're drinking?" Which sounds nothing like Ditko.
Right.
And he goes, I'm drinking bourbon whiskey, sir, and I'll join you. And then he and I had many bourbon whiskeys that night, and everybody's like looking at him. And I took pictures. I actually have a picture of him on my page. But it's so funny because afterwards, Mark Ditko found out he owns a record store outside of LA where Mark lives. He goes, I'm going to go poke the bear and find out more about this interesting story. So it was the greatest gift we could have gotten in the panel. I mean, it really didn't take away from anything else, but it was so much comic relief. It was hilarious. So I just wanted to share that. But
yeah, the idea of Ditko even being at Comic-Con is like,
Yeah.
He was so gregarious, you know.
Before we get into more Ditko real quick, Graham, is there any way you can reach out to Navs and find out if he's just having internet trouble or whatever? Because I knew Navs really wanted to be in on this. So I don't know where he is or if he's hung up somewhere. But so your work with Ditko.
So here's how. So when I started at DC, which is where I started my career, you started on these anthology books. They called them the mystery books. You know, they had basically horror books, but they also had science fiction books. There was a book called Time Warp, if you remember that. And Ditko was drawing these little 8-page stories for them, you know, 10-page stories. And so I did at least one, maybe 2 stories that he illustrated, which is an amazing thing in itself. Here I am, brand new, and I get stories illustrated by Steve Ditko. Amazing. And then I did a fill-in issue of Legion of Superheroes, which in some corners is considered one of the worst Legion of Superhero stories ever written, and I won't argue with them about that fact. Yeah, it was a great concept, poor execution, but Ditko drew it, you know. And again, I get to work with Steve Ditko, so I'd never met him, and I was this is again the very beginning of my career, and I'm up at.
I love that story, by the way.
Which story?
The Legion story.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I really did.
I would love to revisit that character because it was a great concept. It was a villain who had lived, you know, reincarnated thousands of times and remembered every life that he ever lived, and it kind of drove him insane. I think I could really do something with that concept now.
Oh, yeah.
Far better than I could do it then, you know? Anyway, so I walk into Jack Harris was an editor up at DC at the time, wonderful guy. I walked into Jack's office, and there's this guy standing there, you know, just this middle-aged, could be a businessman guy, and this is Steve Ditko. And I was, oh, wow, I get to meet Steve Ditko. That's wonderful, you know? And we exchanged a little bit of pleasantries, and he went his way. I went mine. I finished my visit to the office. And as I'm heading to the elevator, who's standing by the elevator with me? Steve Ditko. So we get in the elevator together. We go downstairs together. And I couldn't tell you what we chatted about, but we were chatting, and we were walking, you know, walked out onto the street together. We're walking up the block together. Now, you know, I didn't know at this point in time that it was verboten to like talk about Spider-Man. You know, I had never heard that. I was just Steve Ditko. He co-created Spider-Man. He drew and plotted these amazing stories, right? So in my naivete, I say to him, "So, you ever think you go back and do Spider-Man again?" And basically, it took about 3 seconds for him to say, "Have a good day," and he crossed the street and he left and went on his way.
Oh my God!
But you know what? I still got to walk up the street with Steve Ditko for a block.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
It doesn't change anything.
Pretty cool.
And it just plays into what everyone says.
Exactly. You know, but I know guys, you know, like Tom DeFalco that worked with Ditko a lot. They loved him. They said he was a great guy. You know, and I'm sure he was. You know, just because he didn't like the spotlight, you know, I think we've created probably a distorted image of who he was, which you probably discussed in your panel.
Right. Well, yeah. And the thing about the panel was that you had this humanizing side with his family, talking about Uncle Steve and Uncle JD. Same. It was him, but just one part of the family called him one thing. Part of the family called him another. He was apparently he was, although he was always single, he was a consummate family man. Was always there for any of his nieces and nephews, treated them like they were his kids.
Oh,
and
so
it
sweet.
just sounds like, isn't that beautiful? I mean, it makes me happy because you know he had love in his life. I mean, you worry about, you know, some people aren't made for relationships, no big deal.
Right.
But everybody should have a good family relation or should be afforded one. And it's very easy to see that he did. And it made me so happy. And Mark and his cousin, they couldn't have been more just loving and caring and telling everybody how great he was. Strangely enough, nobody in his family ever wanted to be an artist after him. And they had a huge family. I'm a little surprised about that, but it couldn't have been a better panel. It went very well. I was just taking pictures. I was part of my own panels, but this panel I was just taking pictures. But because all the people are pretty good friends of mine, especially Alex. Alex and I wrote the book on Neil Adams together. No, it was just it was a great con. There were twice as many people on the floor as usual because there was no Hall H. So it was almost like swimming through a sea of people to try to get anywhere, and it was horrible. But and no one was
but it always is when you're out on the floor there. That's what it is.
Right,
it's nothing new.
It's even worse than usual.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. It was so well because no one had a hall to go to.
Right. So everybody was out.
So there were twice as many people than usual, and this is the first con that's been at full capacity since
pre-COVID. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was horrendous, but it was wonderful at the same time. I got to get my Bill. I still have con coma. Forgive me. Bill Griffith, Zippy the Pinhead, just put out a book on Ernie Bushmiller called Three Rocks, and I got to visit with him. We'd been friends for years, but we hadn't seen each other in a long time. And a mutual friend of ours, who was his college roommate, Christopher Pennock from Dark Shadows, just passed away. And he delivered the news to me, and it was sad. He was a great guy, a great actor, and but Bill drew the Three Rocks in my book. I was super happy, but he has a real. I don't know if you've ever heard of his philosophy on Ernie Bushmiller, but it's a wonderful book, and if you don't have it, you should get it. It's great. It's really good. Sorry, I don't mean to plug for Abrams. They don't need my help whatsoever, but JM, what do you read? Do you read comics at all, or are you displaced from it because you write so much?
I read what I need to read for the specific project that I'm working on.
Right.
I am like right now. I've been working on. Comes out in a couple of weeks. This Magneto. I'm still not sure how to pronounce it after all these years.
I think it's Magneto.
Well, people say Magneto. This is my thing. But if you look at the word from the point of view of the English language, it should be Magneto. There's nothing that makes it a long E, but everyone says Magneto, so we'll call him Magneto. Plus, he's a human magnet, so he really should be Magneto. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, so this is set in a very particular time when he was running the Xavier School. It connects back to a lot of the early X-Men stories. So then, they send you the files and you go and you read. I get to read all these wonderful old comics because that's my job,
Oh, darn.
One of the things I've enjoyed over the years, I've done tons of animation also. So I say to people, well, part of my job is I have to read comic books and watch cartoons. It's the job, and I take a half step back and the little 10-year-old in my soul, his head explodes when he realizes what I do for a living, and that I have to do this. No, I have to read these comics. It's my job. It's a nice thing. In terms of contemporary comics, unless it's a friend that specifically sends me something to read, like, oh, I just got this. Here, you want to, check it out, read it, and then obviously I'll read it because stick a comic book in front of my face, I'll always read it.
Right.
I don't seek them out. I'm not out there every Wednesday looking at the latest stuff. I'm just not. But I haven't been for a long time. When I first started in the business and I was working for DC and Marvel, I used to get everything for free from DC and Marvel. I'd get a bundle from each company every month, and I'd read everything, every single thing. I read comics I never had even heard of before, but I got them for free. They're in the stack. I'll read them all, And then over time, it just kind of became, I'm just going to focus on my stuff here. And, and plus, I like to read books and I like to, watch a movie or whatever. So I don't read comics as voraciously as I once did. But like I said, put one in front of me, I'm always happy to read it. Or, very often what I'll do if I'm in the mood is I'll go back to something old. Like I'm a big Kirby fan. I love to go back to all his Fourth World stuff, pull that off the shelf and just lose myself in that amazing world of Kirby's imagination. Because for my money, there has never been a greater talent in the history of comic books than Jack Kirby.
No. And to be fair, Ditko was wonderfully talented, but he didn't have the story mind that Kirby had by any means. But I mean, his artwork is wonderful.
Well, but remember that he plotted a lot of those Spider-Man stories.
Oh yeah.
On his
Oh
own.
no,
So he was
no.
Amazing storyteller.
No, he was fantastic.
He
created most of the
and look at what he
too.
did. In I mean, we think about Kirby's amazing imagination, which just went on and on for years and years. But just look at what Ditko did in Doctor Strange.
Oh my God!
Also, stories that he was plotting.
Well,
that he created the universes within universes and the most wild, amazing characters that guys back in the '60s. The joke is that they thought Stan and Steve were both on drugs, which of course they weren't, because how else could they have come up?
And that came up in the panel the other day, and both the cousin and the nephew looked at each other and started, ha. It was hilarious because there's no way that happened. Right. Of course,
it's like the same thing with Kirby. It's like no matter how much you look at his life, I don't care what books he was reading. Here's this kid from the Lower East Side, this sort of like James Cagney tough guy, Jewish kid from the Lower East Side.
Right.
Where did this stuff come from? I mean, it's amazing, because I mean, and the thing with Kirby is he was creating amazing stuff for years before he ever got to Marvel with Stan Lee.
Right.
And continued to create amazing stuff for years afterwards. I mean, some of the stuff that he did especially the Fourth World stuff, that's my favorite comics ever. But you have the Demon, you have Commandy. He came back to Marvel. He did the Eternals. He did. I was just looking at the
Black Panther.
The adaptation of 2001. Did you ever see that?
Oh my God! It blew my mind as a kid. And
unbelievable.
It was so good.
And some of his best artwork too. I mean, just amazing
by far. And Machine Man came out of that.
Yes,
and I believe you have written for Machine Man, have you not?
I have not.
Oh, you have not? Then
no,
I am wrong.
Then
I correct myself.
Anyway, Kirby is one of a kind. There are certain gods in the comic book firmament, but Kirby, for me, is above them all.
And he and Steve Gerber created Thundar the Barbarian. Believe it or
they
not.
both worked. I know he worked on the design work for that. Kirby and I think Alex Toth worked on that as well.
Yes, he did. He did. Yeah. He did indeed. And it was Toth did all the ancillary characters. Kirby did all of the villains and heroes kind of thing. Which is a good trade-off. But that stuff was wonderful. I loved that as a kid. But so have you worked in animation? Quite a bit, right?
For quite a bit, for more than 20 years. Yeah.
So tell us what you've done in animation, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of this.
Oh God, how do I? Let's see if I can get it. Justice League Unlimited, Batman: Brave and the Bold, Ben 10, Legion of Superheroes, and bunch of Teen Titans Go, Be Cool, Scooby Doo. I've done a bunch of the DC animated movies, Batman versus Robin, Batman Bad Blood. I did the adaptation of Superman Red Sun. I did a Deathlock movie. I did a Constantine movie. I've done a lot in animation over the years. Yeah.
That's Deathlock.
Not Deathlock. I'm sorry, Deathstroke.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All so many characters with death in their name. You get them all mixed up.
I know. But that's fantastic. And I think the Legion series flew underneath a lot of people's radar.
It did, and it was really getting good when they canceled it too.
It was great, and I loved. Did you work on both the first and second season?
No, I worked on the second season.
Because they changed quite radically.
Yeah.
The style and everything. They were much older in the second season. It was. I got to tell you, it was fantastic, and a lot of people missed it entirely. Even Arlen Schumer, who was my friend at the time, I told him about it. He goes, "Bill, come on, man. There's no Legion series." I go, "Yeah, it was like 4 years ago at that point." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You're crazy." And he looked it up and he goes, "Well, I'll be," and it was just funny because so many people that should have seen it just had no idea it was out there.
Yeah, well, that happens. It's like I worked on the live action Superboy show back in the day, if you remember that show.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
And
I love
I would guarantee the majority of comic book fans out there don't even know that show existed.
Right.
You know? I worked on it during the last season. I was on staff. I wrote 5 episodes, had a great time, great experience. And it was a really, considering the limitations of their budget and everything else, it was a great show.
It was very well done, I thought.
Yeah.
And I believe they shot that in Orlando, didn't they?
Yeah. That's where I was when I was working on staff.
It and Swamp Thing ran concurrently, I believe. The Swamp Thing series,
right? Right. And it probably was around the same time. Yeah.
And they were both being shot down in Orlando, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Well, I know that Superboy was because I was there.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is, I thought, I can't think of his name right now. I want to say his last name was Howard, but the guy who played Luther,
Sherman Howard. Fantastic actor.
What happened to him? He's
one of the best Luthers ever. I mean, his performance as Luther was spectacular. I did a 2-part episode called Know Thine Enemy, which is when Superboy re-experiences Luther's abused childhood through literally going into his memories. And Sherman Howard just gives just a fantastic performance.
He's great. And did you work on the Gilbert Gottfried episode?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No.
I think he would have made. Well, he was the voice of Mr. Mxyzptlk in the Superman cartoon years later.
Right.
But I thought he would have made a great live action Mxyzptlk.
I think they did a live action one on that show in one of the early seasons.
They did, but it wasn't him.
My mind,
he played
I'm thinking
it
was like Michael J. Pollard or somebody like that.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
Oh, it was. Oh my God.
Oh no.
The trivia
it was perfectly cast, and he looked like him too by that point, But honestly, Gilbert Gottfried played him in the Bruce Timm Superman series, and I thought it was absolutely perfect casting. He was great, but Michael J. Pollard just as equally good cast. In fact, he probably looks more like Mrs. Pitlick than any other actor that ever played him. Quite frankly.
Right. Well, then there haven't been that many anyway. So, right.
Well, there's been about 5. Believe it
really?
Or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they even had his sister was Miss Mxyzptlk was on Supergirl, strangely enough, and she was a lot meaner than he was.
I didn't even know he had a sister. So there you go.
Who knew? But Kyle, I feel like I'm just taking all the time.
Again, it's on you guys because I'd hit him with a lot of platitudes again, but I did blink out there for a minute to look up what Nebs was going to talk about since he hasn't made it in yet. I'm guessing he's having connectivity issues. And here it's the UK show, and all 3 guys from the UK are caught out with technical difficulties. So you got me from Indiana, Eli's from Indiana, but on summer vacation down in Florida, and he came on just to talk to you because you're a badass. Gotta keep the love going. And then Bill's down in San Antonio, but one of Nebs' main topic points was the end of Maxwell Lord. I don't know how he was going to get into the question of that, but maybe what led to the end of Maxwell Lord.
The end of him meaning?
I don't know. It's the way he wrote it. He just said.
Well, it could. Maybe he's talking about the fact of when they turned him into a villain. That's the only thing I can think of, and that was certainly out of our hands. I'm hearing a voice. Who's someone else talking?
Oh, that's me.
Oh, okay. Did you want to say something?
Well, I'm gonna have to go in a minute, but I just wanted to say that it was nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure to meet you too, Elijah.
Yeah, I didn't really have any questions, but it was nice to listen to you talk and answer Bill's questions.
Excellent. Nice to meet you. Thanks for popping in.
Go get some sun. Go catch a shark with Aunt Blake. Give Aunt Blake lots of love for me.
All right. Well, I'll see you guys then.
All right.
Bye, buddy. Have a good day.
Goodbye.
But anyway, so I don't know what exactly he wanted to know about Maxwell Lord, so I can't really answer it. Anything else there?
I believe he wanted to know. Didn't you guys write him off?
No, we never did.
Okay.
No. They after our run was done, and then it was the early then when they turned him into a villain, you know,
which I thought that wasn't good. I didn't.
Well, you
like
know
that.
what Keith and I always felt, and then years later when we did Justice League 3000 and Justice League 3001, where we brought all those characters back, we realized our Justice League exists in its own universe, as far as we're concerned, separate from the DC universe. So whatever else happened with Maxwell Lord and killing Blue Beetle and all that stuff, that's not our Maxwell Lord. That's somebody else's, and it's fine. We don't own. Even though we created the character, when you're creating for a shared universe, it's out of your hands. I have written characters that other people have created. People have written my characters. That's just part of what it is to be in a shared universe, and there's always going to be different interpretations. But we always thought, okay, we're in our own universe over here, and our Max was never that Max. Our Blue Beetle was never shot in the head. It's a totally different story.
Yes.
So,
and then his second question, he just said, again, he's like, these are the topics I'm going to cover.
Hey, Keith, I just want to interject one thing. I'm just disappointed they never got Sam Neill to play him, because it was so evident that that's how Kevin McGuire was drawing him as Sam Neill.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they had Pedro Pascal,
who's a great actor.
Great actor and didn't look bad, but he had facial hair, so I wanted him to be like clean. I think he did, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. But I really wanted to see Sam Neill in the role. So go ahead, Keith. Kyle.
Yeah,
Keith.
Keep calling me Keith. I'll pretend to be Keith Giffen for the day. That'd be another coup. If I could land you and Keith Giffen on the show together.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
That'd be a massive coup. But we'll cross that bridge another day. His second question just says, the Hulk, parentheses, the Defenders with Kevin McGuire.
Oh, okay. Well, Keith, Kevin, and I did do the Defenders, and the Hulk was in it. But that's as far as I can answer something that's not a question.
I don't know if you had a different take on it or anything.
No. I mean, it was really fun for us to go and do our what we had done for so long at DC, and apply that to the Marvel universe, and it was really, really fun. And what was interesting is, of course, both Keith and I at different times started out on Defenders. Keith, his first gig at Marvel, I think, was drawing Defenders. My first big writing gig at Marvel was writing Defenders. So to return to it all those years later with Kevin and do the insanity that we do was a lot of fun.
That's also during the time where Keith tried to look like Kirby. And it was beautiful.
I am such a nerd. I can go Defenders 47 for Keith, Defenders 92 for you.
Keith.
Oh, you came in that late? I didn't remember that.
So, well,
those were some of the best issues after you came on, JM.
Yeah, that was, in those days, that was my passion book, because I had always been a big fan of the Defenders, especially Steve Gerber's run. I was a big Gerber fan. He was a big influence on me, because he was one of those guys that said, you don't have to just do this in comics. You can do this, and made it wider and wider and weirder, So to get a chance to do the Defenders, it was almost written in stone that you had to make that book as personal, as much a reflection of you.
Look at what David Anthony crafted. I mean, it was beautiful. But I think you made it your own too, and I think that's what's important about that book is when it would go through different phases, it would always change dramatically, but it was still the Defenders.
But that was the tradition of the book, that you were allowed to get weird and personal and strange and tilt the camera.
Far weirder than they were allowed to do. Avengers, I'm sure.
And because the thing I loved about Defenders also was I loved the B and C level characters, and I pulled a lot of them in because you have the freedom to do whatever the hell you want with them.
Yeah.
When you're pulling in Spider-Man or Captain America, you can't bend the toy that much, But when you're pulling in Son of Satan and Devil Slayer or Hellcat or all these characters that we had, I got to make them my own, and that was really a lot of fun. And the other thing I realized years later in retrospect, I was writing Justice League Dark for DC, and I realized, I think I kind of created Justice League Dark at Marvel, because my first year and a half or whatever on the Defenders was I turned them into a supernatural team, which I don't think had been done before, So that was interesting to realize
they
that all those
always
years
had
later.
a supernatural element, of course, because of Doctor Strange.
Right, but it wasn't a
pushed
supernatural
you pushed
book.
over
Yeah,
the freaking edge.
yeah.
You were during the time of Gargoyle.
Yeah, Don Perlin and I created Gargoyle. Yeah,
Right,
I also did a Gargoyle
yeah.
miniseries. I did a Gargoyle miniseries with Mark Badger. That's one of my favorite things that I ever did at Marvel. Yeah.
And Mark Badger?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mark's a good friend of mine. I'll have to bring that up to him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We hung out last week at Comic-Con for a few minutes. I wanted to spend more time with him, but he and I are we're good now. We had a few years where we struggled with a few things between us, mainly political, but I'm liberal too. It was just what flavor of liberal we each were. It's kind of strange, but I love Mark to death.
Mark's a great guy, and we worked together. The first thing we worked together on the Gargoyle thing. Then we did one of my favorite graphic novels that I've ever done, which is Greenberg the Vampire. We did a Martian Manhunter miniseries together at DC. We worked on, believe it or not, American Flag for a while together.
Oh,
he's brilliant.
Yeah,
he's brilliant.
He's a wonderful storyteller and just a really, really good guy.
And it's funny. He calls himself the man who killed American Flag because I mean to be fair, his artwork was so different than that of Howard's that probably
he didn't.
I thought it was great story work.
We did not kill American Flag. The mistake with American Flag was that they continued it at all after Chaykin left.
Right.
It was a creator. It was a creator-owned book.
I don't think you guys did at all.
It was a creator-owned book. It was Howard Chaykin's vision. I think also Chaykin's American Flag does not get as much acknowledgement and love as it deserves. It was one of the breakthrough books of the 80s. It was brilliant. And it should have been, if he left, it should have stopped until he was ready to come back. Because it was his sensibility. And what we tried to do, I'm going to write it. I'm not going to write it like Howard Chaykin. Howard Chaykin looks at story in a completely different way than I do. I can't be Howard Chaykin. I have to be me. And so if you're reading American Flag and you're reading it for a couple of years, Howard Chaykin, and suddenly it's me and Badger doing something really, different. You try to be true to the characters, but stylistically it's going to be different. So, so I don't think Mark killed American Flag.
I have to tell you, I pissed off Will Eisner at dinner at Dallas Fantasy Fair because he was spouting off left and right that what is wrong with Howard Chaykin? He's totally fascist. Look at these outfits and look at this, look at that. And I spoke up for him and I said, it's not fascist. It's in the future. And that just happens to have come back. If you actually read the book, it has nothing to do with fascism. And I tried to explain that to him. And Jack Kirby was sitting there and he goes, I think Bill's right. And I'm like, that was the most surreal moment of my life. I have to admit. Great. It was so strange. But I was a punk kid. I could have been committing, career suicide trying to get in the industry then. But thank God, Will looked at me and goes, well, I was just looking at it from a fashion stance. And then he backed off. And I told Howard that, and Howard's just like, well, at least somebody is speaking up for. I mean, Howard's hilarious. I love Howard. But what a genuine soul.
It was a great book and
a seminal book for him, I think.
Yeah, for the industry, I think.
Yeah,
the storytelling, the way he wrote it, the way he drew it, the way he visually communicated his stories was really, really amazing stuff.
Yeah, Kyle. Nobody else.
Neb's other topic was Aunt May and Harry Osborn, and didn't say anything else.
Wait, what?
So I don't know what the hell he
was.
Well,
he obviously he must have wanted to talk about the deaths of each of those characters, perhaps. I would think.
Yeah.
Have they both died in the comics? Am I that far behind?
I killed them both in the 90s. What are you talking about?
What the? Damn it, well, I'm sorry, JM. I needless to say, I did not get those comics, and I'm not going to have to go find them.
I did a 2-year run on Spectacular Spider-Man with Sal Buscema, one of the most amazing artists I've ever had the pleasure of working with.
But they didn't stay dead, did they?
It was a 2-year run, and the big thread through those 2 years was Peter and Harry was the Goblin again. And it was a story that climaxed in Spectacular Spider-Man 200, which is, I think, one of my favorite things I've ever done for Marvel.
Wow.
With Harry's death. Harry stayed dead for a good 20 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, I was on Amazing Spider-Man, and we did The Death of Aunt May, which again is one of, I think, the single best stories I've ever done for Marvel.
I remember
as well.
that story. I'm sorry. I'm like I said, I'm still going through con coma here.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'll be right back.
So I assume
man.
that's this is one of the most chaotic interviews I've ever had.
Well, I'm so sorry. Well,
no, I'm not complaining. I'm just noting. Don't worry about it.
So typically we have 3 other guys.
I know. I understand that.
And it's just Kyle and me, so we have to take our bathroom breaks. We have to,
right.
but we don't want to lose you at all, because we feel so honored to have you. I have to say, I talked to several people about different comics and stuff this weekend, and I was talking to I don't know if you know who David Armstrong is, but he was the editor on Eraserhead. He was the editor on most of John Cassavetes movies. He's
really?
the one that we found that we got all these great interviews from 20 years ago. Most of the people are dead now. And I got to talk about Arnold Drake and God, he's the other guy. We talked about him earlier.
John Broome.
John Broome, yeah. And then I got to talk about Jack Davis. Well, Jack Davis was this Southern gentleman pretty much, and he was talking in the clips we have of him. He's talking about, I didn't like doing those horror comics. Oh no, they were horrifying. And he goes, and so when the ladies said they were burning the comics, I burned mine too.
Oh,
and
wow.
I decided I was going to be funny from that. And it was just like, these are epiphanies, though. You don't get that lucky to see someone explain that transition,
right?
And
what an amazing artist he was as well.
Oh, fantastic. And just a good soul too. I mean, born in the deep South, so he had this thing about the Civil War, which, I mean, it doesn't make me want to cancel him in any way. It's just how he was brought up. But there were also several fantastic interviews that we have now that we're going to put into a long documentary. So we just wanted to tease people with some of it. But we had Elder, we had Kamen. I've never seen Kamen in an interview before. Jack Kamen, and Jack Kamen, of course, went on to do all of the artwork for Creepshow years later, so it looks very EC-like.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny because you never see these people in interviews, and it seems like we were so lucky to not stumble, but for these to come up. Here he is.
Sorry,
back to Kyle.
Go up to the library and grab this.
There it is. That's The Death of Harry Osborn right there, signed by Sal Buscema.
Signed by Sal.
Wow.
Talk about an extraordinary storyteller. Sal,
oh my God,
is I think I used to say he was underrated, but I've watched over the years as people have finally caught on, and realized just how good he is. There's nothing that I asked for from him that he didn't deliver and more. There
you go.
And I've told this story before, but in that issue, Spectacular Spider-Man 200, where Harry dies, we worked Marvel style, which meant I wrote a very detailed plot, explaining what was going on, the visuals, the emotions, everything. And then Sal would draw it and I would get the pencils and then I'd do the final dialogue.
Right.
So the last 3 pages, which are centered around Harry's death, in my head, it was always going to be break out the violins, break out the schmaltz. I got the melodrama. I really have to sell this death and really, really just pluck the heartstrings and get to the readers with this. And I get the art from Sal. And I start to write, and I look at it, and I realize everything I asked for in my plot is there in those pictures. Everything. Every single emotion that I asked for. It's all there. So I didn't write a word. If you look at the last 3 pages of that comic book, I let Sal's art tell the story because it was just everything I asked for. And that's the beauty of working with an artist like Sal, who is so good. He can do the quiet moments. He can do the big action. His storytelling is flawless. He can really draw. And the best part of all, he's a really nice man.
I totally read that story. I apologize. It's been so long ago. I totally read that story when it came out. And in my head, I hear this really slow version of the theme song, da, 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 because it was so traumatic and so horrible. I mean, it was justified in a lot of ways, but it wasn't the ending that his dad got. That had to be tragic because he had imposed so much tragedy on Peter Parker, I think.
Right. I always thought Harry was a better Goblin than Norman for one reason, because of the relationship with Peter. As a writer, you can't ask for a better situation than two guys that are both best friends and they love each other, and they're also enemies.
Yep.
That's just, the story kind of writes itself from there. If you know what you're doing, you just follow that. And that's what was so great about letting that play out over the course of those 2 years. It was really, and to do it with Sal was just a great thing.
And so didn't they use a lot of those notes that you put in that issue? Didn't they use a lot of that in the third Spider-Man movie?
Well, they did Harry's death there. Yeah, they did some aspect of it. I'd have to watch that movie again to see. I mean, the elements, but it wasn't.
I feel like you had that they did take from your take.
Oh yeah, they absolutely took from it. Absolutely, yeah. But I would love to see that story adapted more directly.
Right. And go ahead, Kyle.
I keep trying not to be greedy, but JM, I'm telling you, I'm probably going to take 10 comics and throw them in a box and mail them Marvel for you to sign. And this is probably going to be one of them. But after hearing that story, I desperately want this signed by you now. So.
Hopefully next year I'll be back to conventions and we can meet up somewhere at a
That'd be wonderful.
Sign it in person.
I mean, this one, of course, I've never opened that from the original seal when you did a store signing somewhere on the East Coast.
That is not the first story I ever sold to DC, but the first story of mine that ever came out.
Wow.
Yep. Because that's
and what issue is that?
Weird War number 70.
Oh wow, was that high up already? Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that was I said. You broke in those days at DC, writing for these what they called the mystery books, little 5 to 8 page stories.
And and another book I recently just reacquired was issue 93 with the First Creature Commandos,
which all of a sudden is a big deal now, which is hilarious to me.
Did you create them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, wow!
Yeah.
Have you been contacted for anything?
Well, from what I know about the series, James Gunn has already written all the episodes. So that's done. And hopefully,
from what I understand, they're first doing an animated series, then they're doing their live action.
Yes, exactly. And
wow,
more power to them. They already just reprinted all the stories and put out a new edition. And and
I so wish you were writing it though, because it would have been so much more like.
Well, I have a lot of faith in James Gunn. He's a pretty talented guy, and I'm sure he's going to do a great job.
And a consummate comic book lover too.
Oh, so. He knows this stuff. He knows it backwards and forwards. So I'm not worried about that. And if they do a season 2 of the animated series and they want me to come on board, I'd be happy to.
So all I want to say is I don't understand why DC still hasn't given credit to Pat Boyette for his co-creatorship of Peacemaker. It really blows me away and makes me sad because they've really been using the hell out of the character.
Well, who did they say created it on the TV show?
I don't even know if they give creator credits.
It's usually they usually scroll by at the end,
No, I know, but I don't think they. I don't know why, but it should be him, Dick Giordano, and Gil.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
From what I understand,
I don't know. DC, I have to say, DC is usually very, very, very good about this stuff.
Well,
very,
I know.
Very good about,
well, they bought these characters from Charlton, so I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with their lag, but I know that his daughter is very upset. And
I have to say this: that's why God made lawyers.
Amen. Athena Finger is one of my best friends, and her sister was her lawyer, and we had such a great time at Comic-Con together. We always hang out quite a bit because we're very close, and it's so funny because they left Comic-Con to go fly to Germany and just have fun because now things are a little bit easier, and she's invited to so many conventions across the world because people are understanding her grandfather created such a bulk of the Batman, mythos. So more power to her. I'm so proud of her, and I've done everything I could, for my little soapbox. But she's fantastic, and I wish her the best. But
well, speaking of creators, I should mention that the Creature Commandos, the first story was drawn by Pat Broderick.
Yes.
He did the visual designs for those characters.
And Pat's also a friend of mine.
Okay.
Pat might have been at TexasCon the same year you were, but
I think I maybe what year was that? Was that like 2016 or something like that?
I'm gonna spitball
2017,
2013.
Oh, that early?
Yeah, had to be because it was while they were at another facility. It could have been even 2012.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look back. I know I was with my son, and we had a really nice time. It was a really nice convention.
Oh yeah, I had a blast with
Took us out for barbecue. I remember that. It was really nice. Yep.
Yeah.
Who did G.I. Robot? That was Graham's question. Who did G.I. Robot?
Well, I think probably Robert Kanigher created G.I. Robot.
Kanigher did. Yeah, it was Kanigher.
Okay. So
I've just so you know, I got about 15 minutes, and then I have to go.
So a backstory that's kind of gnawing at my brain for a second here. The creation of Creature Commandos. Is it something you pitched?
Yeah.
They bring in.
Here's what happened.
So good.
I was literally just starting out at DC. I had just sold my first stories, and like I said, you're selling to these anthology comics, one of which was Weird War Tales. And Paul Levitz was the editor that bought my first story. So I was selling to Paul. He was editing Weird War Tales. And, I look back and it's sort of a no-brainer. It's called Weird War. So I thought, classic monsters fighting World War II, So I cooked up this story. And just when I was about to pitch it to Paul was when they had the infamous DC implosion.
Yeah.
If you remember that. And so because I was new, the first people that got thrown out were the people that were brand new. So I didn't get any work out of them for 9 or 10 months, something like that. Came back the next year, and in that time, I started working with Len Wein, who became, along with my friend and my editor, he became kind of a mentor to me. I can't express in words what a wonderful impact Len had on me in my career. So Len was looking for new series for Weird War Tales and House of Mystery. And I pitched him Creature Commandos because, like I said, never get rid of an idea. Never get rid of an idea. Always hold on to your ideas. I don't remember whether I had the title or we cooked up the title itself together, but I had the concept and the characters, and then we developed it and off we went,
Outstanding.
So that's that. And at the same time, over in House of Mystery, I did I, Vampire. I created that one for Len as well, Len handed me the title. He said, "Here, I, Vampire, go home and create something," and I did, and that's where it went. So now I'm waiting for the I, Vampire movie. That's next.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that didn't come out a decade or two ago.
Yeah. You think with the popularity of vampire stuff, with DC would have cashed in on that with I, Vampire.
Those are brilliant, but again, how many times can I tell you you're brilliant over the course of 10 years?
So has I, Vampire been made into a series?
No, that's what we were just talking about. It seems like a no-brainer for DC with the popularity of vampire stories to take I, Vampire and turn it into a movie or a TV show. And I'm sure at some point they will. And I
was that your baby also?
Yes.
Oh my God!
Creature Commandos and I, Vampire. They were the first two things I ever created of my own in comics. Yeah.
Wow.
Not a bad resume there.
No. You know what? I already knew I loved all his work. I had no idea how freaking prolific he was. I am still in con coma mode, guys. I
That's
apologize.
Okay. Don't worry about it.
It's bad. But this has been so, we're so fortunate that you guys are friends and that we got this opportunity to talk to you, because I have to tell you, I really liked and was disappointed that Justice League 3000 didn't run longer, because
we could have gone on for years with that.
I know, and it was beautiful. We could have. It was a great comic.
Yeah,
and
we had Howard Porter and Scott Collins and Colleen Duran was doing fill-ins for us. We had really great artists, and Keith and I had a blast on that book. We really
Colleen Duran is so underrated. and she's so wonderful and beautiful. I mean,
she's been winning awards left and right for these Neil Gaiman adaptations she's been doing the past few years. And just absolutely,
now she's getting her due.
Yeah,
but I'm saying
beautiful work.
Oh,
yeah.
it's gorgeous stuff. Yeah,
she's sort of doing her
I'm
best
blown
work
away
right
by
now.
anything. I've always been blown away by anything she's ever done.
Yeah, she's extremely talented.
In fact, as a side note, because she did Distant Soil for Wendy and Richard Penny. I saw them at Comic-Con. I hadn't seen them in years, and they were. I can't remember. It was weird. They were taking pictures, but it was for something, and I can't remember what it was for. But there were so many things going on at the same time this year. It was mayhem trying to focus on one thing. So, but it was great con.
So I didn't think about putting the links in here. Do you have another Kickstarter launch going for the following?
No. We're working. Well, I'm working right now. I'm writing. So we'll once we get the artists working and we know we don't want to do anything and have people waiting 2 years to get their books. We want to be as close to completion as possible when we launch it. So if you want plugs, I have Magneto, depending upon your preference, coming out next month. The Spider-Man: The Lost Hunt, the recent Spider-Man series I did, the collection just came out in June. I'll be starting another Spider-Man miniseries, which is top secret for now, in September. I have a novella called I almost forgot the name, called The Excavator, which you can purchase at Amazon. I have another novella coming out in the fall called The Witness, and I'm working on all 4 next issues of the DeMatteis. So it's very busy right now. I'm very happy, and because I'm always happy when I'm busy and creative.
So I'm working on a pilot right now, and maybe once the strike's over we can talk. But I would really like you to write the pilot if you're interested, and it's based on a graphic novel. So I would love to work with you.
Right. As a Writers Guild member, I can't even answer that in any way, shape, or form now. But
understood. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't have even brought it up, but I wanted to put it out there. So
okay,
well,
that's okay.
And speaking of writing, people have been hard.
But I'm grateful that you are in the union. I'm grateful for all that you've done, and I'm grateful that you're standing with your union. It makes me very happy. Of course you are, but
I tell you, as someone, when you look at we can wrap it up with this. When you look at comics, which has never had a union, and then for me to have been a member of the Writers Guild and the Animation Guild as well, and to see the benefits of a union, all the years of forgetting just the fact that minimums and your payment and all that stuff, the years of health insurance that has gotten my family through that. Unions are an amazing thing, and I know we live in a time where there are a lot of politicians who are so strongly anti-union, but boy, unions are really, really important. And what the Writers Guild is doing right now is hugely important, as they've said, not just for the Writers Guild, but for everyone right now, because whatever occupation you're in, the same problems are bubbling to the surface, which is basically corporate greed, AI, all these things coming,
on both writing and acting,
and CEOs who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, while the people that are down there doing the work are getting paid less and less.
Yeah, not that we're naming names, but Bob Iger. But what a putz!
It was really unfortunate what he said.
Well,
it was really unfortunate.
God, it's like, let's bite the hand that feeds us.
It was just. I think sometimes it was unfortunate. It was stupid. It was tone deaf. It was so many things. But sometimes when you stick a microphone in anyone's face, give us all a chance. We'll all say something stupid at some point. I might have done it. I might have done it in the course of this interview. So, you never know.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I was that guy.
I won't consider this stupid or out of line or anything. I am 1,000% behind you. This global stage we have right now, we are 1,000% behind these unions. We from the rafters will cheer for that. And the politicians that hate unions, fuck them. If you're watching this, you stupid ass Republicans, bite it.
Not that we're partisan, but I do
unsympathetically say that. Come after me. If you got a problem with me, with these unions people, come after me. Because fuck them. Oh my God, I don't have a nice thing to say about them. They hate people.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's yeah, I know. I was thinking the other day, and we don't have to get too deep into this. It's like, there are certain people out there in the political world. I've been saying for you, it's like they're trying to roll us back to 1950, and I'm realizing now, no, they're trying to roll us back to 1850.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's
just extraordinary.
Oh yeah. No, they don't get me started.
Yeah, I know. Don't get any of us started.
Yeah, no. But I do want to say for all of us here, this has been an esteemed honor. We all love your work in all the different phases it's been in, we're grateful that we have a pretty good podcast here. I mean, I know you saw us like pared down today because of circumstance, but honestly, we normally have people across the pond and us, and it seems like a nice balance. So we do hope you come back when we're all actually able to be present. I feel bad for the guys because they were chomping at the bit to talk to you. So
maybe
I
down the line we'll
apologize.
do it again. Then how's that?
We will.
He's got a standing invitation. I try like hell not to bother him, but they say don't meet your heroes, and I say fuck that. What a hell of a guy.
Well, this is one hero that I'm really happy I got to really talk to, even more today than I did back when we talked years ago. But
first time I got to talk to him like this, I got goosebumps and damn near cried because I got to tell him my story of how that the Defenders 92 affected me. And because I'd written it, it kind of gets across there, but I got to look at somebody and go, you dude are a badass, and that made a difference in my life. And when I die a couple years down the road, hey, that's one less thing I got to worry about, off my back. But I said, I got to tell people, hey, I love you, or I love your work, or you were important to me.
Amen.
And every chance I get to tell you that, I'm going to do it because it's profound. The impact was profound. And like I said, it affected today.
That's amazing. And again, I thank you for it.
Thank you, JM. And
it was a pleasure, guys.
Soon. We really loved having you today.
Take good care, guys.
And if you ever want to come on and talk politics and stuff, just event it. Hey, we're here because
we don't care.
We'll hear
anything.
I keep that out of the public square for me. I just, I know. The real problem with it for me is we have enough division and anger, and I try to just focus on the positive. But sometimes you can't help it. You look at the news and you go, I can't believe that just came out of somebody's mouth who's allegedly an intelligent, responsible adult. It's like, but let's not go there. Let's not go there.
I will say one thing.
My kids, so.
The committee hearings today on UFOs, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I got to go watch more of that. Go watch. This is fantastic.
They're talking about link to that earlier. My buddy really Andre Carson runs Project Blue Book. So anytime you guys want to talk about that, I'll get on.
I love that stuff. The last thing I'll say is, as we were going through kind of COVID and all the political craziness and January 6th and all the, climate change. And I kept saying to my wife, the only thing left, things are so crazy now. The only thing left is for the aliens to land. You know what I mean? And now here we are with these congressional hearings and this whistleblower. It's just,
and they had Commander David Fravor in there today too. So
yeah, I got to go watch more of that. It's just fascinating.
It only went 2 hours and 22 minutes, but
hey, man, that's longer than it ever has.
If you want the live link to it, JM, as soon as we get off here, I'll just send you the live link.
Yeah, please do. Please do. So. All right, guys, thank you so much. Take good care.
It was an honor, buddy.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See you again soon, buddy. Well, there you go.
How great was that?
There you go. It's funny here. My screen's going to go blank for a second because I'm going to have a little bit of fun since I done forwarded it to you guys.
So I'm gonna go grab some books real quick to show you what I got at Comic-Con. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
I'm gonna be forwarding this to JM. Hold on a second.
Hi, folks. Bill Field here. These are things I got at Comic-Con. I got the wonderful Fantastic Four book by none other than Alex Ross. I'm still in the con coma, folks. If I can't think of Alex Ross's name, I'm in trouble. I almost called him Alex Toth. So this is wonderful from Two Morrows. John Morrow, new pal of mine. This is fantastic. It's like Macro Boy. What a great guy. He drew some of the most iconic covers of World War II with Captain Marvel Jr., who went on to inspire the look of Elvis, by the way. Just between you and me. You and me. And I hate the cameras on these phones but look at this stuff, folks. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And we keep going. There are lots of gems in here. Sorry, I'm just now kind of going, well, not for the first time, but look at all these faces he did for Captain Marvel Jr. Now, to be fair, after he left, after Alex Raymond died, first person they went to was Macro Boy. So Macro Boy then took over on Flash Gordon and kept doing it for the next 30 years. So again, great book. I recommend it highly.
So what
Kyle,
was the first Fantastic Four book you showed?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Look at that. They colored it like the blacklight posters. That's what's so beautiful about it.
Who did that book?
Alex Ross.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah,
then,
while I was off screen, I was hearing you, but I just sent JM
so now
to the congressional hearing.
So now I didn't even realize till I got home that I got an autographed copy of this. But this is Chip Kidd's panel by panel Fantastic Four #1. Have you heard about this?
No, but you got Chip Kidd's autograph?
It's in here. It already was. I didn't get it on, like, it's right here.
Nice.
Yeah. And I had no idea. So they take the book panel by panel, and he does it in, notorious Chip Kidd fashion.
Yeah.
Look at that crap. Isn't that awesome?
You got 15 more minutes, guys. Graham says that we got 15 more minutes. So, yeah, I'm kind of jealous that I traded Mark away, my Fantastic Four #1 signed by Jack Kirby, but...
Mark Waid?
No, not Mark Waid.
Who?
Mark.
Oh, our Mark.
Mark.
Oh, I thought you were just trying to rile me up.
I traded him away.
Wade,
I sent him my Fantastic Four #1 autograph by Jack Kirby.
Oh, my... What?
Of course, it was the Marvel Milestone edition from 1991.
That's awesome now. You're really messing with me, And these are 2 books by one of my closest friends.
Trina.
Travis Langley. Do you know Travis's work?
No, I know Trina Robbins, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. And on this one, Don McGregor wrote on the...
I forgot to ask JM. I was going to be like, I'm a writer. I need to write a book on Copper Age comic writers and start with him. But, we can't discuss writing details. But
and then here's the piece de la resistance.
Well, there you go.
And
Nancy and Sluggo.
So not only do I get a bookmark embedded here, I was 3 of 100 that were sold, and it's signed by Bill. And then look, he drew the 3 rocks, and he said for Bill, 3 rocks for 3 rocks, 3 cheers for 3 rocks. Right?
I wish I could have sent you my Yao Comics #1. I really want Bill.
Oh, I would. You know what? So Bill and I have something in common. Bill's college roommate was a good friend of mine, Christopher Pinnock, and I mentioned him earlier, but he was an actor and a great actor when he was in his early 20s on Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
And Bill sadly informed me that Chris had died, and actually longer ago than I would have thought, like 18 months ago. And it really, it really kind of bummed me out for a good deal of the con, because and then my friend Nelson Fox came down, and he lost his partner of 36 years recently, Doug Friedlander, who's also a really good friend of mine. And those guys, they had a wonderful relationship. Nelson needed a break because it's been 5 months since he passed away. So he drove all the way down from Ojai, which is like a 4-hour trip, and then drove back in one day just because he wanted to go to con and wanted to hang out with me. And Nelson, if you're hearing this now or in a rerun, you're the best. I love you, pal. And anything I can ever do to help make you happy, I'll always do, pal. So I was very lucky. Got to hang out with Brian Kamak. He's a wonderful friend of mine. Got to hang out with Brian and Jade Pierce. They were wonderful to hang out with. Had some crazy things happen, and I'll tell you later, Kyle, but with the pal of mine that I stay with. But, he's going through a lot, apparently, so I'm going to give him a pass. But if not for Eric Bailey and Travis Langley, I would not have come back home sane. I do have to say that. But
and some late night shenanigans that, they'll wait till next week when we don't have a guest. You can tell us all about your
right. Well, I will say this: the funniest thing that happened was the first night we were there. I ran into Tony Todd. You know who he is, right?
Yeah, Candyman.
And exactly.
Tony.
And so
Todd.
my friend was wasted, and ran up to him and he goes, Candyman. And Tony Todd would have none of that, and he goes, "Now you go to the bathroom right now and you look in the mirror." And he's like, "No!" And he ran off. And I was like, oh, I wish he'd looked in the mirror so bad. I shouldn't say that, folks.
Anytime me. I think of Tony Todd, I think, oh my God. The last time I saw him, I actually told him, I said, you should be Sweeney Todd.
You should have been. But the funny thing is he was so much taller than I thought he was.
And we talked Carl Anderson, and that was amazing. So
Carl, oh my God, that is amazing. What a great actor he was.
Oh my God, yeah.
Dude, don't even get me started. And Fred Williamson too. He passed not too long ago. Yeah. These guys are and
Remo.
Marshall was his last name. The guy who was Blackula. William Marshall, I think.
Oh, that was Dick Marshall. No, I'm thinking of Dick Gregory. I don't know. I'm brain farting.
I think it's William Marshall, but
a lot of brain farting going on today. But I didn't even tell my stories. I'm allergic to bee stings, and I got stung 9 times by wasps in my backyard.
So I was leading into something with that. I got, and I'll have to go find it, but I got the Blackula graphic novel that just came out. The artwork's wonderful in it, and it takes off from the original movie. So that's all I gotta say, Kyle. I guess.
Graham, you should pop up on the screen a bit and say bye. Hopefully we did the show justice today. I am kind of sad Nebs couldn't come around. And I hated putting my grandnephew on the spot. He could barely blurt out one question.
Oh, poor kid.
He's so nervous, but I'm just trying to get him out there. I mean, he's brilliant. He's going to be.
He is very smart.
He's going to be like a rocket scientist.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a comic reader, so I'm like, here's the comic book world, and I'll just pull you right into it. So,
hey, man, that's what a good uncle does, buddy. That's what
I'm a little bit connected around the world, just a little bit.
So I'm curious. I haven't looked at the cover of this. Oh wow! Look at the cover. It's the blurb from the first cover.
Wow!
Isn't that great? And then you put the actual wraparound on it, and boom.
I'm not great.
And what's on the back one? Let's see what that says. I got to do this while we're on camera here. Look at that.
Yeah. I was wondering if he enlarged the ads or whatever.
Oh, man.
What up, E-Man? Guess who I met? The Quinto team. Love to the Quinto team. We just got done with an interview with J and DeMatteis, so we didn't get to talk about that much. I will be showing off those Quinto books soon. Bill just did a panel. Bill just did a panel at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll be talking about that next week too. But great to see you, man. Much love out there. Much love to the girls on the Quinto team. I need to plug Mark into JM so we can get JM's Kickstarter books from that.
I do want to say I felt the love this week a lot. Several people came to me at Comic-Con telling me that they watched the show. I want to tell you all thank you from the bottom of my heart, and of course the bottom of Kyle.
And when I showed the Quinto books, they didn't send me the trade paperback, but I'm positive I got issue 4 and 5 because I got 5 signed issues by all of them. So it's beautiful stuff, and I will do a retrospective on them because we don't have guests next week. So
we seldom have guests, as our fans know.
Well,
today
it's not by my doing because the way I wanted to do it was have a guest weekly.
Well, literally. You know what I was going to say is I almost took the day off because I'm still in Concoma, which I've mentioned now 8 times. But if I hadn't come on, it would have just been it wouldn't have been as fun, right?
Well, and you got to talk.
Bill Field brings the fun,
animation, and all that fun stuff too. Speaking of animation,
I didn't realize. Oh, I wanted to ask him what episodes of Brave and the Bold he wrote.
Most of them.
Really? Oh my God! So he did that.
That's what he said. He said most of them. So
what a genius!
Yeah,
and what a gentleman.
He is a
genius and gentleman.
Writer, so.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's one of my top people.
Yeah, he's
of all people in the world of people. So, folks, you know,
this is still the coolest when he put out this CD and then pulled it off the shelf. We're talking about it, and he's like, pulled it off the shelf, and he says, "Yeah, I'll send it to you." That's
so he sings.
1990.
He sings.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Very influenced by Dylan. He put out a CD.
I do have to admit, folks, I kept thinking we were talking to Stanley Tucci the entire episode. So
there you go.
But he didn't start trying to cook Italian food, so I was led to believe that it actually was Mr. DeMatteis.
I'm about to go in to get some Italian food, but I say it again. Cool points for me. Look at me with all the coolest friends in the world. DeMatteis, I got Bill right there. I got Grant. This is my platform to say, look how cool of fucking friends I got around the world.
And the fact that you brought me into this whole melee months ago makes me very happy. And I just want to say I love the show. I love our fans, both of y'all. And
say hi to my mom.
Hi, Mom. I love you, Mom.
4 generations covered in my family.
I love Mom. Mom's great. You know, more Mom, less Kyle. I'm kidding, Kyle. No. I like
everybody in the world
too.
agrees.
Come on, man. Come on.
Everybody in the world agrees.
But honestly, folks, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. This is a passion project we do. We, of course, make no money. We probably spend more money than we make, thanks to Gray. And I just want to say it means a lot that you guys tune in every week. And it means a lot that you actually care about us and would come up to me at Comic-Con and tell me that. So thank you so much. And on that note, Kyle, I say adios.
Yeah, we send everybody off in a arrivederci and let Graham get his meal. I'll go in there and cook as the storm.
But what's that Cheap Trick song? Sayonara, you won't see another year. Good night. Okay, sorry.
Good night now, ladies and gentlemen. Good night now.
No, that's a different song. This is the one where it's Sayonara.
Well, they just did Good Night and singing Sayonara live.
Oh, that's right. And then they go into you're right.
Yeah.
You're
If you ever want to see my Cheap Trick swag, I got tons of it. You need a Cheap Trick pick, I'll give it to you.
Well, you know I'm getting it from you. We're talking your memorabilia.
I already got my Van Halen swag set aside for you. So.
Oh, and I want the Cheap Trick shit too, please.
Yeah, I got to hang out with the guys a few different times.
That's so great. You know, it's so weird. I keep seeing my mustache in like a different light because I see it without my beard, and it looks like I want to be the next Magnum or something. It's kind of weird.
Go.
But so, folks, thank you. Come back next week. Hopefully, we won't have any car wrecks and all these crazy
We'll have
things
Mark
going
and
on.
Nabs and Graham, and it'll be a normal show.
We'll have the guys from the other side of the pond. Look, watch this one more time. The other side of the pond.
There you go.
You know, and they tend, just so you know, if you just tuned in today for the first time, they tend to sound like, hey, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do? So, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you next week.
See you later.
Adios, buddy.
Wrap it up, Graham. We'll stay live till we're not live no more. When's the live gonna cut out? Oh, big screen on me.